Greetings and welcome, everybody. I'm Taylor Sharp. This is the FileMaker Pro user group, Dallas, Texas. We're here at the Harmonic Data Studios. Glad to be here and good to see everyone as we're getting in the holiday spirits. We're going to kick off with a big meeting today. If you got a FileMaker Server, the 22v2 is out, which fixes CVE Tomcat problem in case you're into the security end of things in the National Securities Database. So make that little update if you're on the server side of things. FileMaker Pro has recently just updated, I guess last week, 22v4, I guess it is now. So certainly get those updates. That's the latest things happening on the FileMaker world. A month and a half ago, I went to the Full Access Conference and got to meet and better know Mike Linett, who's here today to give a presentation. I'm probably like a lot of FileMaker developers out there, particularly guys that are just single developers, in that I know a fair amount about FileMaker, but I don't know much about hardware, and Mike has been educating me a lot about it. So a lot of my clients will come to me to ask about hardware, and of course I know about your generic Windows Server or a Mac Studio or things like that, but a lot of clients are wanting to know what's the next step up in hardware end of things, and that is an area that I really don't know about, which is why I'm really glad to have this presentation to be here today. Mike and his team at Zerowait are all about the hardware end of things, and if you're looking at moving up in the world of FileMaker performance and the enterprise end of things, Mike and his team at Zerowait are going to educate us today. And Mike, I'm glad to have you here. Come educate us.
The title of our presentation is FileMaker Performance Energized. Again, thanks for inviting me. The second half of the third decade of the third millennium is almost here, and Zerowait's FileMaker Service Appliance is designed to take your critical infrastructure into the fourth decade of the third millennium. C-suite executives prioritize reliability, scalability, availability, and security to meet corporate responsibilities and address operational challenges. Our deliverable provides a safe, secure, and local solution that's required by the C-suite and operational staff. I graduated from the University of Delaware in 1981 and started working for myself in 1989. Initially, I programmed inventory systems in PIC, DBase 3, DBase 4, and FoxPro. In the mid-90s, I moved into networks and switching per customer request and then added NetApp storage in 1998. This grew into an international business, and in 2004, I started writing our own ERP system in FileMaker. In 2010, we came out with our SimplStor product line based on customer requests for a scalable, reliable, predictable, and affordable big storage solution. The product line has grown into a large portion of our yearly revenue. As our business grew, so did our reliance on FileMaker. We have 3.5 million records and over 770 tables, over 5,300 fields, and over 400 relationships. We store about 16.5 gigabits of FileMaker data. We also keep almost all emails, logs, attachments, so we track and analyze system anomalies and customer interactions. We believe in data security, so we encrypt our data, take scheduled snapshots, and replicate our data to our remote location. Additionally, we compress our data to reduce our bandwidth traffic and have data archives back to early 2023. Our nightly replication to our business continuity site can be restored quickly and used by employees to keep our business running. As mentioned earlier, the C-suite is usually quite interested in the what and why of our solutions, but not in the how. The IT manager is interested in the how, and he knows he can depend on Zerowait. In our experience, the IT manager has many bosses with an often cross-functional C-suite, and Zerowait solutions provide them the answer to many infrastructure issues. IT managers need to know when they call, there will be someone on the other side that can solve their problems. Zerowait's team knows the magic five-letter word, F-I-X-I-T, fix it. We fix things quickly. After all, our company is not named Manana. That company is probably out of business. The purpose of this engineering presentation is to answer a request for quote for a customer of Harmonic Data. They asked us to provide them our turnkey SimplStor X14 NVMe configured as a integrated, safe, and secure local virtual machine solution for one of their FileMaker customers. Harmonic Data used the term just add water to describe what they needed. Steve, can you go over the RFQ that you gave us?
Mike, thanks for being here.
My pleasure.
I just also want to call out that Mike is sponsoring this and buying us all lunch today. So I appreciate that, given that I normally buy lunch. Harmonic has predominantly enterprise class clients. We've been doing this for a long time, and our particular niche in the FileMaker world is large systems that are deployed in enterprise class environments on enterprise class hardware. And on-prem is a big priority for a lot of our clients. Some of our clients are in government, some of our clients are in healthcare. We have a series of compliance obligations and performance obligations where on-prem is often the golden standard, and going forward, the same will be true. 2 or 3 months ago, this guy shows up at an FMPug and introduces himself. Hi, I'm Mike from Zerowait, and I was really excited to meet him. Why is that? Well, here's someone who their entire business is building and deploying and setting up enterprise class hardware, support for Linux and Windows environments just like we use, and they have actually heard of FileMaker, right? Never in my decades of doing this has that been my experience. So the question became, okay, well, what does a 2026 Claris deployment, harmonic style deployment look like for us, okay? I probably have a Linux FileMaker server involved. I probably have 2 or 3 instances of that running. You know, one is going to be loaded for production, but I want to be able to run a duplicate instance of it in dev or staging. We do 2 and 3 stacks for all of our clients. I probably have a Windows remote desktop server as one of the VMs running on that machine, right? Because at a minimum, I need to have my developers get in and access it remotely. In many cases, my clients will want their team to leverage the FileMaker client adjacent to the server. These days, most of our deployments have a Docker server, and we're typically going to run that on Linux. And we're going to run a lot of things on that. We may be hosting JavaScript. We may be hosting other databases. It might be a LAMP, et cetera. So there's probably a Docker server involved. Most of my customers are Windows AD, Active Directory, right? So depending on where this is located, I maybe need a primary or a secondary AD server on that machine. And then it's 2026, AI. So I need an AI server, and I'm really excited to look at the possibilities of local and on-prem AI. You've been hearing us talk about that. That's a growing phenomenon. So I need an AI server, and in a perfect world, I'd also be able to train that AI. And so that's my just add water, right? If I could have that, I have multiple customers where I could, size up, size down a little bit, but I could basically take that same piece and drop it in, configure it, deploy it. And so that's my question to these guys is, what would that take? How do we do that? So that's the genesis of our RFQ, and I think the rest of what we're going to talk about here.
Thanks, Steve. Our engineers, Chris and Steve, will now present basically Steve's request for the RFQ and go through the process of what we're building for them, and then we'll end up with a quote.
Thanks, Mike. This is how we start a project at Zerowait. A ticket is created via our ticketing system in FileMaker. We receive a client request for a new SimplStor X14 NVMe system. We open an engineering ticket, review the infrastructure requirements. Then we design the SimplStor using FileMaker blueprint quotes that we created. We quote it. Then we build and test and validate all the components. And then we configure all of these systems to the specific needs of the client. So the question comes up, are there really just 2 types of people in the world? Maybe, but a few of us hold a few different titles. So I've been in IT since the late 90s. Spent a few years at Dell Plus focusing on server customization. Spent 6 years at NetApp as a systems engineer. Spent 4.5 at EMC as a regional pre-sales resource, and then spent a few years in the global competitive group, actually focusing on NetApp. We actually perused Mike's blog once or twice. Spent a few years working for startups, and then I've been in Zerowait since 2013. So the question comes up, why did we build the FileMaker Performance Server? Well, we couldn't find a commercially available turnkey solution. So as a company of storage and networking engineers, we just decided to make it ourselves. To better understand where we're at today, first we need to kind of cover a bit of history. In the beginning, we were a mix of X8 and X9 versions of VM hosts. We replaced the X8 hosts over time, arriving at our current environment. The movement to the X14 was really driven by us adding features to our FileMaker server. We added automatic ticket creation for level 1 events. We added an exception reporter that we brought in from an external app. We added automatic fault detection and reporting. All of the client logs that we get every week are processed in FileMaker Server, and then a simple report is sent out back to the clients. Developed a quoting tool with the ability to create predefined templates and for supported builds. And all of our email marketing and tracking is held within FileMaker. All of our data is safe, secure, and it's all local. So this outlines kind of our data handling within FileMaker. So Steve Aughinbaugh, the brilliant gentleman sitting beside me, he can provide the information related to this slide.
I'm not sure about brilliant, but I built my first computer in '78. So I don't have as white a hair as some of y'all have, but I've been doing this for 60 years. Mike had a system written by somebody else in Python that read support emails, parsed some of the data, and sent it on to FileMaker with a rudimentary interface. Mike wanted it all in FileMaker. So I started building this generic rule-driven parser that can handle any type of email practically. It first figures out what type of email it is, stores that email in a temp storage table, and then a second process comes along and starts parsing the emails. Some of those emails, particularly NetApp 7 auto supports, are very voluminous. And any of you that looked at log files over the years and stuff like that, after a while you generate a feel for what looks normal and you can scan them pretty quickly. But I guarantee you can't scan them as fast as FileMaker can and find what's relevant and ignore the chaff. So that's what this system does. It even will automatically create trouble tickets. It'll send simplified reports back to the customer, either for the weekly emails that we get or for the exception reports. Anyways, this was the system that I did the statistics on. Some of these systems that Mike supports have almost 1,000 drives. And some of those, it would take 60 to 90 minutes to parse through all those drives and then store data for each one of those. So Mike asked me, he said, well, we need some performance statistics to compare the X9 to the X14. So I made sure I had enough information in the logs to get the data, and here's what the results were. Moving to the X14 system, almost universally is 3 times faster. You can see the average on some of those was, I think it was the version 7. I think it's like 9 minutes, and it went down to 3 minutes, under 3 minutes, to parse each email. We would get about 1,000 of those emails over the weekend, and it would back up into Monday, processing them. We get another 1,000 during the week of less complicated emails. So this was simply installing the new hardware and migrating it over, and Chris can talk about that. And these were the performance improvements we got.
When we did the migration, the only thing that we did was we vMotioned from our VM server. We just vMotioned our FileMaker server over from an X9 system over to the X14. That's all we did. We didn't increase resources. Literally nothing changed except for the platform. And that alone resulted in the increase that Steve talked about. So when we talk to clients, they face a few challenges when looking at infrastructure. One is cost. Well, VMware with recent changes is becoming fairly price prohibitive. There's no more perpetual licensing. There's a minimum purchase for a lot of their products of 72 cores and a massive increase in renewal pricing. Another security. Cloud has had a few challenges lately. So CrowdStrike in July of 24, Google Cloud, June 25, AWS in October, Microsoft Azure in October. Cloudflare had their little issue in November, and this morning, actually, they had another hiccup. Our experience in adding the X14 system to our environment led us to believe that developers and clients could also benefit from the versatility and the flexibility of the system. Since our focus has always been to provide safe, secure, and local solutions to our clients, we began looking in a little bit different direction. One of the developers that we have at Zerowait, Ken Irwin, suggested that we should take a look at Proxmox. It's fully open source, free to download and install. It also has an option for paid enterprise support. Proxmox is unique, though, in that it has native ZFS support. We'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. So we decided to take a closer look at that. And what did we find out? I'm so glad you asked. So Proxmox is a Type 1 hypervisor just like VMware, meaning it installs directly on your computer's hardware, not on top of another operating system like Windows or Mac OS. This allows it to manage your hardware resources more directly and efficiently. It supports both VMs and containers, unlike VMware that only supports virtual machines. With the latest version, 9.1, Proxmox also supports encapsulated Docker containers, and all of this functionality is deployable from a common web GUI. As I just mentioned, Proxmox comes with that web-based graphical user interface, or GUI. It makes it easy to manage your virtual environments, storage, network settings, and updates from any web browser. Proxmox also allows you to dynamically allocate resources like CPU, memory, disk space, and even GPUs, enabling you to set limits, priorities, and ensure that your applications run smoothly. Additionally, the native ZFS support from Proxmox brought features such as copy and write snapshots and clones, to name a few. So what is ZFS and why do I care? That's a great question. So ZFS is an open source advanced file system and volume manager originally developed by Sun Microsystems. It's now maintained by OpenZFS. Instead of managing individual drives, ZFS creates a pool from all your drives. That pool acts as a single large storage space, and you can easily add more drives to it and expand it later. When you change a file, ZFS doesn't overwrite the original data. It uses copy on write. So that means it writes new data to a new location and then updates the pointers to the new data. This means your data is never corrupted by power failure or crash during a write operation. And if something goes wrong, the system can revert back to a last known good state, and you don't have to run FSCKs or file system checks. Those aren't very much fun. ZFS constantly checks the integrity of your data using checksums. So if it finds a corrupted block on a drive, it can automatically self-heal the data using the redundant information from other drives in the pool. That's a significant advantage over traditional RAID, which might just duplicate the corrupted data. Snapshots, my favorite thing. They're instant, space-efficient, point-in-time copies of your data. Allows you to easily roll back to a previous state if you accidentally delete a file or mess up a configuration, which that never happens. Snapshots are also read-only, and therefore they're not susceptible to ransomware attacks. We actually had a client just going through, actually is probably still going through it right now. ZFS is also very efficient when it comes to replication for backups and disaster recovery. One of the most noteworthy attributes of ZFS integration with Proxmox is this. Regardless of the operating system, any VM stored within a ZFS pool can benefit from those snapshots. It doesn't matter if it's Linux, Windows, Ubuntu. It could be an NTFS file system, ext4, it doesn't matter. They all benefit from ZFS snapshot capability. So as we mentioned earlier, we've been working with our good friends over at Harmonic on a Just Add Water build. This is kind of an example of what one might look like. So here we have 6 virtual machines running on the SimplStor X14. We have a server running RDP, or RDAC. We have a FileMaker server. We have a LAMP server. We have an AI RAG server. We have another box, VM for system for AI training. And we also have a FileMaker worker node. Running several systems under Proxmox provides a number of benefits. Lower hardware costs, better utilization efficiency, operational management, snapshots, and live migration, flexibility, scalability, dynamic resource allocation, and the ability to scale up rather than out. High availability, meaning it's the ability to create HA clusters and clones. The bottom line is that a just add water build can reduce server count by 60 to 80%, can reduce power and cooling and admin time 50 to 70%, allows you to provision resources in minutes, not weeks, and protects your data using HA, DR, and live migrations. So next we have a little demo of one of the capabilities of Proxmox and ZFS. So here we have the administrative console for Proxmox, along with a couple of VMs. FileMaker Server running on Windows 2022, and FileMaker Pro running on Windows 11. The GUI is clean and straightforward to use. Since everything is laid out logically, it makes navigation very simple. Now let me show you how easy it is to create a ZFS pool in which you can share and store your VMs. So here you simply select a server, go under Disks, go to ZFS, click Create ZFS, give the pool a name. We're very original, so we call it Test. For demo purposes, we're just going to create a 2-disk RAID 1, select 2 available drives, click the Create button, sit and wait. And there you go. It's as simple as that. And it's just as simple to delete a ZFS pool. Let me show you how that happens. So you go to the server. Since we're already in the ZFS section, we just select the pool you want to remove, click More, then Destroy. As a safety precaution, enter the ID to confirm the removal, click the Remove button, and there you go. It's done, just as simple as that. Now, before I show you how all of this is going to enrich the lives of all of those here in person, remote, and the millions of people watching this later on YouTube, let's start with a little restore. Since we're an infrastructure company, we tend to do a ton of testing. And during testing, we often blow stuff up looking for better ways to do things, me in particular. Doing a full restore of all of our FileMaker databases used to take up quite a bit of time. And if we missed a step, we often ended up having to run and verify on the databases. Not a fun day. I had to answer to Mike on those. Since we created a tool that it would make sure that we didn't forget any steps. So this is what you're going to see when we do a full restore from the previous backup. And that's our little FM Tools app you see on the side. So here we're going to go back to our FileMaker Server and open up our Tools app. The Tools app is set up so that the server name will help validate that you're on the right system, that you're about to perform the restore. That's important, especially if you have multiple systems. It's also site aware, so that if it's used in our DR facility, it looks for the replicated backups local to that location. So we're going to choose Update Recover, answer yes. It's going to take us to the backups that we've got. We're going to select Test FMS. That's a copy of a previous full backup that I made that wouldn't roll off. All the databases are closed and removed. And then the databases from the backup location are copied over to the server. Now we've compressed the time on the copy because it's kind of like watching paint dry, watching a copy move. Once the tool verifies the number of databases open are the same as the number that exists on the server, you're going to see a timer pop up, and that's going to show us the total time for the restore. All of this is done using FileMaker commands in the background. And now it's validating. And there you go. So now we can see on the admin console, when we look back, that all of our 13 databases are open and available. Now we're going to show you one of the benefits of the ZFS snapshots. So as we mentioned before, the power and versatility of ZFS snapshots can benefit from any flavor of operating system running as a virtual machine on Proxmox within the ZFS pool. It doesn't matter what flavor it is. So here we're going to go over to the Proxmox console. We're going to select the server and go down to Snapshots. We're going to click Take a Snapshot button, and we're going to name our snapshot. Now you'll notice that there's an Include RAM checkbox. That's important. We're going to make sure that's checked. The RAM option allows us to copy the system state at the moment that you're creating the snapshot. It takes a little bit of time, so we've compressed that time, but it's going to allow us to bring the system back to that state after a rollback. It took about 5 minutes to copy the RAM plus a near instant snapshot from ZFS. And task is finished. So now we have a good snapshot. Since we have now a good snapshot, we're going to go medieval and we're going to create some havoc and delete some databases. So we're going to go in the admin console. We're going to close all of our databases. I'm sure you guys have seen this a bunch. Now, once they're all closed, we're just going to go in and whack them. So once they're closed down, we'll open up Windows File Explorer. And then we'll just navigate to Program Files, FileMaker, FileMaker Server, Data, Databases. Y'all know where I'm going. So now we're just going to highlight everything and delete. Oh, yeah. I hear the gasps out in the audience. Yes, we're sure. Then, just to make it permanent, we're going to go ahead and delete them from the recycle bin. So now we go back and look at our admin console. Not a good day. No databases. But wait, there's more. We have a snapshot. So here we're going to go back to the Proxmox console into our snapshot section. We're going to select the snapshot that we want, and we're going to click the rollback button and confirm that we really want to do it. Now, when the rollback begins and we compress the time again so nobody's sitting there watching paint dry, the total time for the rollback is about 3 minutes, just under. So once that completes, it's time to see what we have. So we're going to go look at our FileMaker server. Because we saved the system table the RAM option, all the servers, all the databases are online, servers online. You don't have to start it up. Now we're going on to our FileMaker client, fire it up, connect, and right there you can see that our databases are up and online. All 13 databases are up, and we have that single connection back in. That's just one of the features that Proxmox is able to provide for any operating system. So the X14 is a flexible enterprise solution that doesn't break the bank. It has support for up to 256 and more cores and a higher E-core per node. It's up to 50% higher performance uplift in compute-intensive tasks like AI. It's optimized for the latest NVIDIA, Intel, and AMD GPUs. Runs PCIe 5, which is double the bandwidth of 4, and it has up to 400 gigabit networking options. The X14 reduces system costs for scaling FileMaker. In other words, it puts more money in the developers' pockets. I kind of like that. And it enables on-prem scaling without having to refresh hardware. So I talked a little bit about our blueprint tool. This is something that Steve built. It's phenomenal. So it's within FileMaker, and it's integrated into our inventory. It pulls costs and client information to create our quotes. Mike?
So Steve, this is your quote, and we took you through the process of how we built it. So you have here a single unit and a dual unit. As you saw, Chris was doing a bit of redundancy testing and stuff. And so what we do is we go from our Delaware location to our Texas location, and we can snapshot back and forth, but we can also bring up all of our Delaware employees on our Texas data if a hurricane knocks out Delaware, or a truck happens to take out both internet lines on Kirkwood Highway. But then we have redundancy in every way, and the data is accurate. Thank you, Chris and Steve did a great job. So to summarize our presentation, our team has built a flexible, high-performance enterprise FileMaker server that will provide snapshots, immutable storage, and replication to remote and local sites. This provides organizations with Windows and Linux infrastructures a safe, secure, and local solution for their critical data that can grow as your FileMaker and AI performance and storage requirements grow. Our hardware solution combined with Harmonic Data's FileMaker and AI expertise provides organizations with a scalable, predictable, affordable enterprise FileMaker server solution. And with that, thank you, Taylor. Thank you, Harmonic Gang. Thank you, guys. And we're open for questions.
Okay, two questions. One, are you able to virtualize the Mac OS? And two, we're interested, obviously, we're doing lots of AI stuff in FileMaker. So like NVIDIA GPUs, have you guys done AI testing, performance testing? How well is that on this system?
So with the NVIDIA question, they are supported with the system. We kind of subscribe to a crawl, walk, run concept. So we test everything heavily in each of those different locations and series. So we're starting to go in and look for the specific GPUs that within Proxmox we can actually carve up different allocations, kind of like CPUs. So we don't have any performance specs on them now, but they'll be out somewhat soon. As far as Mac OS goes, yes, there are ways to virtualize Mac OS. So we can go into more of that a little bit offline and get to the nerd section of it, but there are ways to do it.
Trying to get the mic around. Do we have any questions from afar from our Teams meeting?
Do any of you do version control on FileMaker?
Define version.
Well, that's what this ZFS thing sort of does for us. I mean, I first started working on the system, and Chris pointed me to a dev system, and then I'm like, okay, how do I get this to the production system? Oh, well, you kind of got to go retype it, copy and paste. So I don't even touch the dev system anymore. If I do something extensive, I put my ID. It says if it's me, do it this way, otherwise do it the old way. And if it really gets bad, I call Chris and he
Figures it
reverts.
out. Yeah, so basically a check-in.
So the performance testing that you've done and the numbers that we're seeing in terms of speed, how much of the data involved container fields with binary?
I don't know how to answer that. Almost all of it. You'll see a category on there that just says email. Those are basically junk emails.
Okay.
Most of those don't have any attachments. But everything else has an attachment. They have log files. They have all kinds of stuff.
Okay.
And that's stored in container fields.
Because container
External.
fields for backups and restoring
That's-
such have always been an issue.
Yes, and the ZFS snapshot makes that a lot simpler. I mean, Chris can talk about that.
Yeah, so a lot of the auto supports we get will have upwards to 30 to 40, sometimes 50 attachments. And each one of those has to be gone through. And that's what Steve was talking about. So when we moved from the X9 to the X14, we saw that 3X improvement in that. And so it's significant. And like I said before, we didn't increase resources or anything else. It was literally the performance of the backplane, CPU, everything about the X14 gave us that performance lift. So now we've been doing some tuning and we're actually adding resources to see what the effect of that is.
All right. I don't know if it's a question or just want to make sure I understand correctly what you presented and how it works.
Yes.
So if I follow, ZFS is like the base, not operating system, but file system on the hardware that Proxmox, for instance, can run on.
Correct.
Or that Proxmox autopilots. And then I can put on ZFS different filing systems for my virtual machines. So you mentioned NTFX, and I think, what was it? The
EXT4.
EXT4, which I think is the
Unix.
used on Linux a lot and so forth. So I can put my Windows machines, my Linux machines, et cetera. They don't have to be running ZFS directly. They
Correct.
can be running in a virtual machine, and then
Right.
ZFX gives me the snapshotting and the replication and all of those goodies.
Exactly. So think of the ZFS pool in a VMware sense, think of it as a data store. So the ZFS pool is just going to be the container where you put things. So you're going to put your VMs in there, and so that VM is going to be encapsulated. So whether it's Windows, Ubuntu, whatever it is, Linux, whatever flavor. And so within that operating system that is sitting on ZFS, you're going to have whatever native file system it is going to be with that. So with Windows, you're going to have NTFS or REFS. It doesn't really matter. And so the operating system that's running doesn't need to know anything about ZFS, nothing on the outside. So that's all handled from within Proxmox and that ZFS integration. And with the RAM option, that allows you to take the system state. So you don't have to shut down the system. So back in the days with like Oracle databases, and scripting those backups, you'd write a script, you'd put it in hot backup mode, right? You'd flush all of the logs, into the database. You'd start writing to temporary logs. And then from a NetApp perspective, you take a snapshot. So you couldn't take a snapshot until you had that known state. The RAM option alleviates all of that. So you can actually set the RAM option, take the snapshot, and like we saw on the demo, your system actually comes back up on a rollback, actually up and online. If we hadn't clicked the RAM option and taken the snapshot, you'd actually have to start up the operating system. And again, it doesn't matter what it is. So all of that sitting on top. So there's no need for, whether it's, macOS virtualized, whether it's Ubuntu, Linux, Angry Penguin Linux, it doesn't matter. And there actually is one. It's kind of funny. I like their logo. But it all sits on top of ZFS, so they all benefit from that snapshot capability. And
Right.
from other pieces and things that are coming down the road.
So riffing on that a little bit, can you just go into a little bit more detail about how the disaster recovery, how the second location, right? If I put, one server, it's on-prem at my customer's primary office or network location. The second server is maybe it's on-prem with me or, somewhere else. How do they stay in sync? How does that cutover happen? Can you go into a few details there?
That's our next demo that's coming up. So you're taking some of our thunder. So what happens is ZFS is great at replication. And so you can set up ZFS replication. It does differential replication. So you're not sending over tons and tons of data. So it's sending over block-based changes. Very analogous to how, other companies that I've worked for perform, right, with their file systems. It makes it very efficient so that you do that shipping of the change blocks over. So if you have a disaster in your primary, then you're able to bring up your secondary at whatever level it was for the last replication set.
So thinking about FileMaker Server as a use case here, if I'm snapshotting throughout the day, I could in theory cut over to my last snapshot, which might have been minutes ago.
You could.
Right.
We do that. We do that sometimes at Zerowait. So we have a location in Delaware. We have one in Texas. And Mike and I had this conversation a lot. We can bring things up in Texas, but we have to make the decision because if our primary is unavailable, like when the truck hit the telephone pole and took out both of our WAN connections, it was a great day. It was a Monday, I think. We were actually reading from our last backup in Texas. Julia was able to read and get online and see all of the current client information. We didn't make any changes to it because we would have had to reverse replicate it back up upstream. But yeah, there's a lot of flexibility and capabilities built in within that.
Excellent. Yeah.
One thing just to make sure, I've been doing FileMaker backups for a long time, and always what the big deal is you have to pause or close the databases to get a backup, so that it basically takes everything out of the cache and the memory and stores it back to the disk so that you get a clean backup. And so basically I'm understanding that by when you guys copy the RAM, then we aren't needing to do the preparing of the database to get it all back on, in storage before we're doing backups. If we do a snapshot, it literally will get all the cached information that's in the FileMaker service at that time. So we can, if you're doing those types of snapshots with the RAM, then we don't have to pause the databases.
Correct. You don't have to. We have backups that go, the normal backups within FileMaker. We schedule those every night at midnight. And so we do the standard backups. And then I have a process that actually moves that backup off to our file server, and then that gets replicated down. So those are all crash consistent. But yeah, you can, with the RAM option, you can actually do a hot backup and not take anything down.
That's impressive. And another question, did you guys get to try any benchmark comparisons of FileMaker service performance, like with 24U's benchmark kinds of stuff or anything like that?
We've been working a little bit with it. All of the performance statistics that you see that we presented today are actually on live data. And so we're trying to figure out how to kind of compare live data to, performance data and get a real world scenario. So we don't want to pre-cook or show performance numbers that are cooked to go, oh look, we're this good. So that's we're trying to kind of resolve and figure out how we want to present those.
Certainly. Well, I'll be very interested. I'm very impressed so far, so I've learned a bunch,
Cool.
and I appreciate there. Heather's got a question.
Can the snapshots be scheduled like backups can?
You betcha.
That's the right answer. Okay, thank you.
All right, so I want to drill into the AI piece a little bit. And I know that, we've talked about getting to the point where we can do some testing and benchmarking. I know we haven't done that. I'm not trying to put you on the spot or anything like that, but I just want to understand and maybe help the audience understand how that might work. So I got this big box that's got all this CPU, all this RAM, all this drive and network, and I can kind of carve it up and put a bunch of virtual machines on that. But some of those machines I want to be my AI server, or I want to train AI on it. And if I understand correctly, your hardware is able to attach a GPU into it, so that I can then, when necessary, offload the LLM or the training to those GPUs. So how does that, explain a little bit like how that works with the virtual machines? Because that seems like a superpower.
So that's something that we're working on right now. There are specific GPUs, NVIDIA GPUs, that are supported within Proxmox to be able to carve up sections of that the same way that we carve up the CPUs. So it's going to be very analogous to that. So in the way that we have a 92-core CPU, and we can allocate 12 vCPUs to a VM and then 24 to another one. It'll be very analogous to that, but that's something that we're working on right now.
Yeah, that's super cool. So I think if anyone's looked at what does it look like to go out to Amazon or Google or anyone else and rent a similar machine with a GPU attached, it is non-trivial.
It is not inexpensive.
Yeah, potentially thousands of dollars a month, right? Like you're looking at it and saying, I think I could literally buy that GPU within a couple months of what I'm paying here, right? So I think the notion that we could deploy a physical piece of hardware on-prem and attach that GPU, there's some real runway.
Well, and also not have to do a complete pass-through and allocate all of that resource to a single node.
Right.
And that's one of the benefits of Proxmox, is that with specific GPUs, you can allocate portions.
Yeah, because
that's a real game changer.
I might want to have one AI server that's just answering queries, but maybe I've got a RAG server as well that I want to leverage some of that GPU with.
Absolutely.
Yeah. To the room. Here's a QR code. Please click on that and take our survey. To the audience, there's a QR code. Please click on it and take our survey. We really appreciate that. It helps us do better at these things and evolve our craft. One more thing I'd love for you guys to just talk about a little bit more, and it really is one of the things that attracted me to what I was hearing from you up front, and that is that you're not just a sales cycle, right? You're not just, well, here's the hardware, good luck. You offer a range of services and support. So, let's say we pull the trigger on one of these quotes for one of my customers. Just kind of walk me through, high level, what are the kinds of things that you guys are capable of taking care of for us? Already engineering on the front end, you've kind of gone through that. But then as we're deploying, as we're supporting over time, just say it again for myself and everyone on the call here, like what your range of services is.
So like we said before, we're not developers. So we focus on the hardware aspect. And that's really what we've done forever. Everybody that we employ is in-house. We don't have any kind of follow-the-sun support method or anything. So when you call our support line, you're going to get me or one of the other engineers on the phone. Now, if you call
Amazing.
if you call at 3 o'clock in the morning, you're gonna get a groggy me, and there may be a dog barking in the background, but we'll work through that. But it's very much we consider our clients. I mean, they're our clients. They're under our care and protection, and we Mike just had a dinner that we invited clients from all over. The first client that Mike ever had, we still have him. And I talk to him on a regular basis, and we still manage some of his infrastructure. And so he'll just call me straight off on his cell phone. Hey, I'm having this problem. Hang on, let me check. All right, you're fine. And so we take that approach. And so we do, we watch over all the hardware. We have hardware maintenance contracts, so you don't have to go out looking for a hard drive to replace something that failed. If you're set up with our ZPO program, then if you have a hard drive that fails, most of the time we know it before you do. And we're sending you an email saying, hey, you had a drive fail, and by the way, do you want it shipped to the location that's on the contract? I didn't know I had a drive failed. Yes, ship it there. Fine, it'll be there next business day. So we take care of all of those things. If you've got hardware problems that aren't just a simple fix, we work with our clients to resolve those. So it's really whatever they need. We have even ITS for other things. We help with migrations. We help with very complex migrations. I've got a client, 2 of them actually, right now that are moving from a NetApp platform. We support NetApp as well, moving from a platform that is, I started NetApp in 2000. They are actually on a version of software that was in effect when I first started at NetApp, and they're migrating to current. That was 25 years ago. So, and so we're working with them to do that migration every step of the way. And that's what Zerowait does.
I think for a company like mine, at least, that's a fantastic partnership with the kind of service that we offer our customers.
Right.
And I think I'm really excited to continue.
Let me simplify this. So if you guys sell a SimplStor server,
Yeah.
you expect someone to be there on site to rack it and plug in the power, fiber, and that, right?
Sure.
Hit the power button, and it's already configured to call home to Zerowait, right?
Okay.
When it comes up.
Yep. Yeah. That's great.
So it's really kind of a turnkey.
Excellent.
We don't plug in the power cord, but you can do that.
Now, for the right amount of money, we can travel to wherever you are, Hawaii, any place very lush, and plug in the power cord.
Does the price differ depending on how nice it is? It should, right?
Maybe.
So we have customers with SimplStor systems that are over 10 years old. No problem. We build stuff to last. We're engineers. It's not a 3-year cycle with us, and then a migration and upgrade. The other thing is that the system, which is actually in Grand Prairie, that Chris is talking about, those customers, they've been a customer for probably 2 decades. Once we set up, we're serious about fix it. We're going to make it right every time. And our customers stay for a long time. When engineers move from one company to another, we end up with both customers. So it's about long-term service and support and friendships. And that's what the dinner party is all about, our friendships.
There you go.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Mike. Well, I'm really excited to explore this more with these guys. We're looking at AI use cases, FileMaker deployment use cases, et cetera. And I think there's a real opportunity as we look at local and private AI solutions. We may have situations where folks are in the cloud and they want to get out of the cloud, right? And we need partners like Zerowait to help make that happen. I just want to call out, we've got a great FMPug coming up in January. Clay Mackel, one of the OG Claris and FileMaker engineers, really the guy that designed the engine, it's called Draco, behind FileMaker, will be with us in person. Clay is now a Texan. He was in California a long time, but he's now a Texan. He'll be with us in person for the January FMPug. It is not the first Monday, because the first Monday is the second. It's our first day back. That would be a disaster. Sorry, the first Friday. It is the second Friday. It is January 9th. And so we will be here and invite you all in person or virtually to that event. I think it's going to be really interesting, where Clay is going to be talking to us about their latest release and, frankly, anything else we can bug him about. He's a good extemporaneous speaker on a variety of topics, so I encourage everyone to join us for that event. All right. Thanks, guys.